All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Legend of the Galactic Heroes, episode 28. All right,
so new chapter. Here we
we've
are.
got ourselves in the next stage of the story.
Yep.
We had a little bit of a time skip. Reinhardt is solidifying his version of reform that he's bringing to the Empire.
Yep.
For the most part, it seems decent.
Seems pretty good.
Seems decent, yeah. But the big thing is that Yang is now having to deal with attacks on the Isolon Fortress with a lot of updates regarding the staff of the Alliance military and navy at this point. But Rubinsky has plans that will be a problem.
The back door. Let the enemy in, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's kind of an issue.
Yeah. And if they ally with the Empire, the Alliance is pretty much doomed.
Yep.
Now the question is, with the fact that their main threat, the Fejon Dominion's main threat, is the Empire currently, what do they have to offer in addition to that will make them anything more than maybe just a... Well, because Reinhardt could then maybe just waltz his fleet through their territory and then
sort
be
of
like,
gobble it up as he goes.
Okay, I guess now you're mine now.
Right, like
because maybe he's okay with that as long as they can end up getting into the shadow, kind of behind the scenes ruling.
Because they're wanting to win from an economic victory, essentially, as far as them, not the Empire and everything. I think they would be fine with that because they would still continue on, even if they were officially part of the Empire or something.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. All right.
This will be interesting.
This will be interesting to see how they're negotiating that point, because Reinhardt doesn't have his boy with him anymore.
Well,
so he might be a little bit more ruthless in his negotiations, or he might be a little bit more just tough to handle with regards to Adrian.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Yang will have to address this issue however he's going to address it.
Once he finds out about it.
Which will probably be kind of too late by that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, and then come back here for the discussion. Okay. All right. So we've got ourselves a lot to go over here.
Yep.
Reinhardt has been feeling, I would say, the burden of his power.
Yes.
He is having to be more of a delegator than a person who can really be a leader, if you will.
Well, or at least directly doing things himself. Because he's been used to delegating before, he definitely would still do that. But now it's like that's his main job, just making sure that the people that are in the positions are the right people, basically.
Right. And that's different than being a leader in the context that I'm talking about, which is when you lead, you are the one at the front. You are the one basically then kind of taking the brunt of everything.
Directly setting the example kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say stereotypical kind of leaders like that tend to focus on their charisma being the thing that emboldens those. And now he's more of a director.
Right.
He's now just pointing at people in the background, telling them what to do and how to do it.
Right.
And then holding them accountable to the measure of their job, basically.
Their station, yeah. Right, and it makes sense because there's no way he'd be able to do that if he was actually giving direct focus to one specific area.
Right.
And then, there's the whole thing that because he is essentially running the Empire, it's not just the military things that he has to deal with, right? He's doing the military stuff, but then he's also, organizing who's in what positions and things like that in the social structure as well, or yeah.
Right. What we've got plot-wise this episode is rather simple from in terms of the story in the present time, because most of it was actually focused on backstory.
Which was great.
The stuff that we got in the present is that we have this new character been introduced, Shaft. I love that we can just call someone Shaft in this. And hey, we had a C in there, so it makes it more Shaft,
That's right.
But he is the head of the science and technology division within the Empire.
Right.
And that's a good thing that we're bringing up, because
This is a sci-fi.
Yes, and also in war, one of the terrifying things about it is that weapon innovation can skyrocket because of problems that you end up coming into. And we also indirectly also introduced casually a character named Oppenheimer, around the same time we talked about coincidence. Yeah, it's not really has anything to do with this, and I'm being serious. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with this. But it is interesting that now we're having this let's attach 20 warp engines to a fortress.
Right.
Wait, suddenly if this is a thing, we could mobilize this fortress into the Alliance.
Oh, sure.
That's literally a Death Star now.
Well, one of the other things too is if this does work, then theoretically they don't have to worry about taking Iserlon. If they manage to do something like what Yang did with the defense systems and just send a warp missile at it, or a few, and destroy it, right?
Sure.
Then, there's lots of civilians on Iserlon, we know this, right? But that's something where then they could just then park this new fortress into the place where Iserlon was, and there you go, right? And you didn't actually have to fight the Alliance for it.
Right, and maybe they end up basically using it as more of a battle shield, really, for the fleet, if anything. Because what they could do, and this is a crazy idea, but if they warp it in really close, why would they use then the main gun for Iserlon if it's just going to do damage to themselves? I'm talking really close. I don't know how precise they could warp it in, but if you end up warping it in really quickly, I mean, and then you just start firing on exit, everything, fire all guns, and you just charge straight at it. Maybe, what is it, Thor's hammer or whatever they've got, the big uber weapon on the Iserlon fortress, they're like, it's too close. If it fires and it's destroyed, the Iserlon is going to take insane damage, and then it's crap, we're now in this awkward standoff where we're firing little weapons at each other. But
I don't know, but given that nukes were introduced, now granted nukes are not a new thing in this world,
right,
but it's something where there is a level of fighting that they don't want to go to, right? Because that's some crazy escalation, and it gets really nasty at that point, right? So
that was with civilians. That's why it was something that they didn't want to do.
Right. But right, which just brings up the idea of that. Yeah, keep it between the military forces, not between the civilians, right?
Yeah.
And if the weapons end up turning into Death Star style super weapons and stuff, that's not the kind of thing that you really keep to just military personnel. Unless it's maybe on one of those defense systems, because then, you use it against enemy fleets, but...
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. We also got all the backstory with Mittermeyer and Reuental, and that was a very unique style of delivering it. They basically went without really any kind of impetus in the story, other than these two are important characters.
I think there is.
Okay. What's the impetus?
In the previous episode, we had Reinhardt give his little line, or was it the episode before that?
It was the episode before that.
Episode before that, where we have Reinhardt give his line to Reuental of, eventually, when you think that you can oust me, you come and do it, and that's fine, right?
Okay, yeah.
So the idea that they keep referencing this idea that Mittermeyer and Reuental are basically the next higher ups, and if they did too well, they could end up being the second in commands that have the same issues as there was with Kirheis.
Yep.
That Oberstein pointed out. Oberstein is also at that rank, but they also don't. No one really likes Oberstein within Reinhardt's organization.
Right.
So giving them backstory, there's the whole trope of sudden backstory equals horrible tragic death. But in this situation, what I'm guessing it means is that these two characters are going to be way more important in the near future, because Kirheis was gone, and Kirheis was one of the core characters, one of the few core characters other than Reinhardt and Yang. Then that means they're upgraded. They're being upgraded big time. And what is the purpose? What will they be used for in the meta narrative of the story once they've been upgraded like this?
Right. I think the main thing is that this is more just the tell of that. Like you're saying, it's if anything, the impetus might have something to do with Reuental, but it's actually more of a character upgrade impetus. But that's a future thing, not a past thing. So a future thing would be Mittermeyer and Reuental could be the ones that spearhead the attack from the other side with regards to the Fejon Dominion's potential alliance. Now, that hasn't gone through yet, and I liked that because nothing has really happened on that front yet. The story is still continuing, and Fejon Dominion stuff is still, they're still trying to work within the Empire. No alliance has been struck, no joining has happened, which means that that's still a thing that's got to be, worked out. It's not just going to blink and then one episode it'll just be done.
But also, if it is going to happen, they won't want the Alliance to know about it. And since the Alliance probably has spies, I could definitely see it being something where Reinhardt is basically needing to mobilize fleets for that, which maybe is already sort of, the works are set for that to happen, but they don't want anyone of any lower rank to know about it, so the word doesn't get out so the Alliance can prepare for it.
As to why they're being mobilized.
Exactly. So people are like, what's going on? And because it's this whole dictator thing, that Reinhardt's doing, it's like, it makes them question it a little bit more.
Sure.
And then, and I love that they're bringing this up of, it's not just that we want to attack from the other side, it's that we want to be ready to take Iserlon once Yang leaves to go defend the Alliance, because then we can keep that checkpoint and there we go, right?
Right, and because the Empire is a dictatorship at the moment, Reinhardt is capable of making these kinds of executive decisions where there is no question. The fleet mobilizes, it's done, but also maybe, like you're saying, there can be this bubble of information where you're on a need-to-know basis with regards to really big movements. We're not talking covert operations.
Right, this is like mobilizing the entire military forces.
Or no, it's not the entire military forces. It's just a fleet. It's just, or two fleets. And then the Alliance spies here, fleets are mobilizing. Stuff's going down, but we don't know anything about what they're doing. These could be fleet exercises. These could be, attack on Iserlon Fortress. They could be like dealing with insurgents. We'll give you further updates, but there's a time delay. There's got to be some time delay between those kinds of bits of information. And then maybe there's just too many fleet mobilizations. They're too common to where not all of them get picked up. And one of them happens to be headed towards the Fejon Dominion. And it's like, are they going to attack?
Right.
Are they going to, do something there? And it's like, oh no, it's too late. They're already on the borders of the Alliance and they're attacking,
Like that. Oh man.
There's a lot of crazy things that could happen with that.
And the fact that we're seeing a bit more hesitancy, or at least questioning, of Reinhardt's orders from the people that, serve him. Now that he is not on the front lines, I think that's really good to point out, because even though Reinhardt has proved himself to them time and time again in the past, it's something where his boots aren't on the same ground that they are, right? He's telling them to go somewhere that he is not going himself. There's a level of confidence and assuredness they'd probably have whenever they're alongside him of, there's no way we can lose. He's the god of war and all that stuff, right? But now he's sending us somewhere. Are we the ones that are making the victory move, or could we potentially be a pawn that might get sacrificed? And even though they wouldn't think that he would really do that, there's still that like.
I feel like that's really heavily extrapolated. I feel like a lot of the stuff we got here was more of just specifically kind of questioning the things itself, not really questioning the person or the character.
I'm not saying that's what's happening right now, but it's the precursors for that to be able to happen later.
Right. But that's why he's delegating and promoting all these people to higher positions of authority where they can end up being those people themselves. Like Mittermeyer is already a legend, which is quite interesting in that they're really, really, really re-emphasizing that, but they're not really doing that with Reuental. I find that to be kind of interesting in that they're both to be the twin stars, and Mittermeyer is like, he's the Gale Wolf, and Reuental, they make references to his heterochromia in regards to his eyes.
And he did get a very tragic backstory.
Yeah, but we're not bringing up his fleet skills in this extremely overt way like we are with Mittermeyer. So maybe the new golden child, if you will, of the
and
Empire.
There's two of them, and they're like, bond stronger than blood, inseparable and all that stuff.
Yeah. There could be some cool stuff there. It's a little reference for Jacob and I, kind of specifically. But I think that they're going to be pushing Mittermeyer to be kind of the new threat against Yang specifically. Because if Yang is supposed to be the battle genius of the universe, basically, like he's one of the best, and he's maybe only really rivaled by Reinhardt, what they can do is use these admirals as basically like, well, they're kind of they're not Reinhardt 2.0s, but they're like adjacent Reinhardts,
Sure. And and that could bring up the idea that maybe Reinhardt really isn't cut out to be a dictator. He's cut out to be a military leader, right?
Sure. And he's still young.
He's still young. And when it comes right down to it, maybe what would be better for him to do is just to delegate a lot of, find really good people that can run the empire, and then he runs the actual military forces, Right. But I feel like he's a lot better at finding those people that are good admirals and stuff, rather than people that would run the nation well.
Right. Hildegard, or Hilda, I think is probably one of my favorite potential characters, because she doesn't have as much going for her right now, but the idea that she's an Empire Jessica Edwards equivalent feels exciting, because she's still alive. There doesn't seem to be any threat to her currently. And if she continues in this position as kind of a middle manager, administrator of sorts, I see a lot of potential there for her being put into governing positions, like maybe like the governing authority on Odin, that reports directly to Reinhardt, and then we start to, maybe this is where the dictatorship part comes in, we start to sequester and remove little bits and trickles of authority that the Kaiser has behind the scenes. And the Kaiser becomes more and more like I'll settle your disputes. I'll kind of have these little things there. I will be a good vessel and a good kind of picture painting to kind of be there and go, look, I am young and full of life and the hope for the Empire. And I'm going to do basically nothing but like a current 5% of political stuff here. So that you guys feel adequately,
Yeah, like the kid that they have now is very much just a,
he's a kid.
Yeah, it's the thing so that it's not blatantly 100% obvious to everyone that Reinhardt has taken over,
Right. And I'd say in some ways maybe a lot of people are okay with Reinhardt taking over at this
he's
point.
He's doing good stuff.
Because nothing's gone too wrong thus far. So,
he's brought about some good change and things like that.
There's one, nasty rumor from way back when, but we don't really talk about that.
Yeah, that was never verified.
Fake news, all that jazz. On Yang's side of things, we didn't really get much at all, if anything here.
Yeah.
But the idea that he will have to respond to the idea of a fortress being sent his way, I really want to see how his history experience applies to, we moved the castle.
Right.
Why don't we just take Geiersberg and move it over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see him coming up with some really cool strategies and ideas, but
only if he's there.
Only if he's there.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that we didn't get too much from him because we got a bunch from the Alliance in the previous episode.
Right.
But oh boy. Oh boy. This is gonna get crazy.
Yeah. Y'all, if you want to see the... Oh, wait, hold on. Before we do that, should we talk a little bit about the Mittermeyer Reuental backstory a little bit more?
Yeah.
I think we kind of only lightly touched on that.
I really liked that.
Yeah, I really like it. I think what we did here, for the most part, though, is we kind of showed the ways in which different upbringings allowed these men into the forefront as admirals. Now, we saw, I would say, a much simpler, less nuanced story with regards to Mittermeyer. And maybe that's where a lot of his confidence and a lot of his kind of his prowess comes from, is that he doesn't have these burdens necessarily that's holding him back.
He goes, all for it, gung-ho, fast and everything, yeah.
But he did say when they were kind of trading some little bits back and forth, some banter, saying that he sometimes ends up being forced to make these logical decisions.
Oh, to be the voice of
the prudent one. Yeah.
Right, uh-huh.
But what I think he's saying is that Reuental could totally be that person if he wasn't pretending to be so stupid, basically.
Right.
Which I find as an interesting dynamic that he's like, hey, dude, you know, step up and like make some good moves. Like, you can do this. Yep. But why aren't you?
The thing that I thought was really interesting with this in conjunction with the stuff that we got for the potential future, like when will Reinhardt, the Lowengram regime end, you know?
Oh, right.
Is the idea that when Reinhardt said that very important line to Reuental, Reuental was like, what are you talking about? You're kidding, right? Like,
oh, right.
You know, because that was something that he very much didn't seem to want. With Mittermeyer seems like the kind of person that would, like, he was mostly commenting, you know, on the, we're getting sent over there, right? Because he doesn't want, you know, you don't want to have the same number 2 problem and all that stuff. But but it was kind of the, you know, got all the youthful fire and everything and wanting to do as much as possible and encouraging Reuental to do that.
Right.
You know, it's sort of like the thing where because Mittermeyer is the charismatic one, right? So if there was something where the two of them, like, say, turned on Reinhardt in the distant future, right? It would seem like Mittermeyer would be the main sort of figurehead for that, but he seems to think that Reuental would actually maybe be better at that.
Right.
But he's the one that would be egging him on of like, come on, let's do it. This is fine, you know?
Right.
So, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. If anything, what I would like to see is a moment where Mittermeyer messes up and Reuental has to come to his backup.
Sure.
Because if we're talking about this episode being kind of a delegation episode, if they're supposed to be the twin sons, you know?
Right.
Then they should be twins in terms of function, form, and everything. There should be no kind of leader or one-up in any way.
Right. They complement each other because they're like polar opposites.
Right.
But yeah, you
Right. They're like brothers, if you will. They'll have basically this opportunity then for Reuental in some ways to be kind of the one that has maybe a little bit of a, because they talked about how he's cold with women and stuff because of his past, but maybe there's something where he can be kind of the ruthless one and come up with a really like bold tactic that is also a logical idea. Meaning, like, if Mittermeyer makes a lot of safe calls, you know, and thus, like, constantly, like, plays the percentages.
Mittermeyer does that?
If Mittermeyer does that. Because he says he's like, I'm forced to make the logical decision.
Right.
Meaning, like, the one that's not emotional, the one that's not based on my burdens of my past, you know?
Right. Personally, though, I think he said that because he doesn't like doing that.
He wants to be the one who
tears open the doors to the flower shop.
I agree. Yes, I agree.
Okay.
That's a fantastic point. But then Mittermeyer needs to step up and make those types of decisions. You know. Sorry, did I say Mittermeyer?
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
Reuental needs to step up and make those types of
decisions. Right, because that's where Reuental will probably shine. Is that he's calm and cold, you know, and like there are places where that's very helpful,
especially on the battlefield.
But on the battlefield, especially, you know, you lose your cool, you die, right? Fear cuts deeper than swords. So
yeah. I also like that we saw them in tons of different environments, supporting each other, helping each other.
Yep, very good montage stuff.
Yeah, and yet Reuental, boy, you've got all kinds of stuff you're going to have to sort out.
Yeah.
And because Mittermeyer lied and said he doesn't remember any of that, Mittermeyer's not going to be able to help you with that. He might be able to indirectly kind of set you up to do it yourself, but you're going to have to do that stuff.
Well, and I think that's I loved how that was handled because it's something where essentially Mittermeyer was like, I know that you didn't you would have liked to have taken that back if you could. Right. So, yeah, that's fine. What? I didn't remember anything.
I completely took it back.
And Reuental probably Reuental kind of knows that, you know, Mittermeyer is saying that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's like, thanks, bro. That means a lot, right? You know.
Right.
So there's still, like, like you were saying, he can't help with it directly, but he is still there as like a, you know, I believe in you. You got this. And if that's the kind of stuff that you have to deal with, that's okay. You know.
Yeah. So I definitely love the idea of them being the kind of replacement main characters in the core cast.
Yeah.
For Keir Heiss. It's 2 for 1, you know, so it's a good deal.
Yeah, Keir Heiss definitely would require a 2 for 1 kind of kind of deal.
Otherwise, we'd feel really, like left out with regards to this whole thing. So
I thought you were going to make like a horrible pun.
I was, but I stopped myself.
I appreciate it.
You could tell, right?
Yeah.
I have it still in there. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there. And all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general. You can also talk with Jacob about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
Yep. You've never heard about it before. I know. It's, crazy. But I wrote a sci-fi novel called Battle Lines, and it's awesome. And it's on Amazon. If you want to check it out, the link is in the description below.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.